morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 8:32. We're running just a moment behind schedule. We'd like to go ahead and get started today. Scott Tankersley is not here today, so I will be presiding. I'm John Barrio. If we could, I've asked Tommy Hebert to open us with a word of prayer.
If you would, bow your heads with me. Dear God, we thank you for many, many things. We do realize everything comes from you, and you have privileged us with what we have. I ask as we deliberate here today that we do so in a spirit of collegiality and of civility. Even if the questions may be somewhat hard, let us do it in the right spirit. Let us do the right and the best thing for this community in which we live that we all love. We always petition you for rain. We do that now. We do thank you for that which you have sent that has given us new life, not in the too distant past, but we ask for more. Again, we thank you for all that we have because it is from you, and I pray these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we will now take public comment. The board takes public comment on all items on the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the board at this time. The board may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? I do not see any acknowledgement, so we'll move on to the next section, which is our regular agenda. Item number 1, consideration of approving the June 10th, 2014 special joint meeting minutes of the City of San Angelo City Council and the City of San Angelo Development Corporation Board and the June 25th, 2014 regular meeting minutes. Have you all had a chance to read it over? Yes, sir?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second by Mr. Anderson and then Mr. Hebert. I don't believe I need to ask for public comment on that, but is there? Okay, with that, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll move on to item 2. Consideration of approving necessary corporation disbursements and authorizing the designated board members to sign related corporation checks.
Good morning, Board.
Laura.
Good morning. I just wanted to bring to your attention, in the packet, you will notice what you all received was on the first item it showed, you'll see a difference okay, let me start over again. I've given each one of you a revision, and if you'll notice on the first and the second copies there, the wording is different, and because of that, it's because there's a 75% split with economic development and a 25% ballot. Totals do not change, it's just the wording.
Thank you, Dora.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any discussion on that? Has everyone had a chance to look it over?
Move approval of the revised list.
Thank you, Tommy.
Second.
We have a second by Tony. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes. Item number 3, presentation and consideration of approving the June 24th financial statements and any action thereto. Presentation by Ms. Tambunga.
Good morning.
Morning.
And take a look at the June financials and just kind of highlight some of the activity this month. On page 1, we have the executive summary. As you can see, that unreserved fund balance for the economic development side of $6.6 million, and for the ballot side, $3.2 million. Our sales tax for the month of June was $728,000. We are up 11%, and year to date, we are in excess of $782,000. On page 2, we show the graphs representing those expenditures by major category. for the economic development side, as well as the ballot side. For the economic development side, if you look at that revenue and expense report, our revenues, we had our sales tax revenue of $240,000, as well as we received some of that BRC lease income this month of $1,500. On the expenditures, the administrative of $4,000, a majority of that was a reimbursement to attend that Ports to Plain event. And other than that, we just had our routine disbursements like our chamber contract, some BRC, and some CVC ED expenses. We were revenue over expenditures of $196,000. On page 5, you'll see the economic development projects. No activity on these items. We still have our commitment of $2.2 million. For the ballot side, the only activity we had this month was our sales tax revenue, so we were $619,000 revenue over expenditures. On page 8, the ballot projects. No activity on these projects as well. We still show that commitment for our ballot projects of $224,000. And pages 9 through 17 give you those detailed transactions. And the remaining pages list the voter-approved projects, which the only project that had activity this month was the Concho River.
Does anyone have any questions for Rebecca?
Make a motion that we approve the financial statements as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Tony
Second.
and a second by Tommy. The comedy team of Tony and Tommy over here. With that,
It just counts if you're funny looking.
oh, okay. That works for me. Okay, with that, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, consideration and possible action regarding the funding of a new air service marketing plan for the San Angelo Regional Airport. The amount of the funding not to exceed $79,825. Presentation by our airport director. Welcome, Louis.
Good morning. Just want to have a presentation made by somebody else, not me, but I'd like to introduce Edward Shelswell White. He's with Lex Volo, and he's going to be representing us in the proposed new venture that we're trying to do in regards to air service development. So with that, I'll be happy to answer questions after.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Louis.
Welcome,
Good
Mr.
morning.
White.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Morning.
Let me see if I can figure out how to get where we need to be. Okay. It's great to be here today for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is you're so close to my home in Dallas, so to be able to be in the same time zone and in the state of Texas is a wonderful thing, believe me. I want to walk you through a few things at a relatively high level. If you whatever questions you have, whether it's during the presentation or after, would be happy to answer. So whatever is comfortable for you, whether it's interrupting or waiting for the end, we can go either way, so you guys jump in as you see fit. This is sort of an overview. We're actually not calling it a marketing plan, we're calling it a development plan. What we're trying to do is look at what we think might be unique about the situation that San Angelo is in today. Typically, a city of this size, we wouldn't be looking at a lot of very outside-the-box ideas for air service development or marketing. But we think there's reasons to believe that there might be something more than what's normal going on here. You're all very aware with all the development, and I've seen it here on my couple of trips into town. There's so much development going on, and typically airlines' models for how they allocate service down the road tend to lag the real world by a pretty significant amount. And so they are always playing catch-up mode. They're not trying to invest capacity in markets in advance of proof that the market is there. And so normally you let that play itself out. What's interesting about San Angelo is that you have a small community air service development grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation that is expiring at the end of this year. It was a 3-year grant. And we think that given the nature of the way the market we think is evolving, really literally before your very eyes, that having that tool, which could help to underwrite pretty significantly new service from a new airline to a new airport, that extending and preserving that and acting more aggressively than we would normally recommend to a city this size to try to get advantage, to take advantage of those economics and the ability to underwrite new service might allow us to accelerate development beyond what we would normally expect. So if that sort of makes sense at a high level, that's what separates San Angelo from most other markets of this size that we would look at. The combination of the rapid development that probably won't show up in the airline's models until after this grant, if we can get it extended, until after it expires. And that seems like an opportunity that we wouldn't want you to miss. So really what we've done is we've broken down that objective to use the grant to try to accelerate service into two key goals: to identify and capitalize on potential quick wins, and then also to position you after that has expired for long-term success. And so what we're trying to do is real quickly assess the market, which involves doing really two pretty significant studies. One is a leakage study that tells us how much of air service that you want San Angelo that is actually flying out of somewhere else. A market assessment, which tells us what the airline's network strategies look like and how San Angelo might fit into that so that we can talk to the right airlines at the right time. And then a comparative analysis, which I think in your previous discussions on this issue, the word MINOT has come up a lot. That's just an example of a market that might tell us something about the kind of development that's happening in San Angelo to give us something to base our plan on based on what's happened in the past, while also looking at what is different about Minot and in San Angelo that we would have to adapt to, because no two cities are going to be identical. So we want to look at what's worked for them, but also adapt to what is different about San Angelo versus Minot or another city, so that we can have the best chance of getting you a plan that succeeds, that has you ahead of the curve. Also trying to preserve the grant by going through the extension process, which is relatively simple. And then in the long run, setting you up for success by helping you put together a plan to go in front of target airlines at the right time with the right message to try to help educate them about the market and what's happening, again, before the data evidence themselves to their planning models. Does that sort of make sense? So that's the overview of what we're trying to do. Two other quick slides, and again, I'll take questions anytime or on the back end. This is an overview of the timeline. It's probably a little smaller than it needs to be. So what this does is lays out the various things that you would get in exchange for doing this. And essentially where we are now is at the end of that first block of 3 or 4 lines in terms of actually doing the defining of the goals and the objectives. And once that's approved, if it were approved, we would get into the full design of the strategies and measures, which includes a lot of the things you saw on the previous slide. And that would take, depending upon approvals and other things, somewhere around 3 months or so. The thing that we don't control in terms of timing is how quickly DOT would respond to what we think would be a September to October application to extend the grant. Whether they would respond with a letter same day or take till the end of the year, we really don't know. So there's a little bit of uncertainty built into the plan there. There's no cost associated with that, but there's just something we don't control. And then at the end of that, when we've gone through all of design work, at that point we develop an actual integrated plan that whether you retained us or did it on your own on the end of it, you would then have a playbook essentially of which airlines to talk to, what the message would be, what they would want to know about San Angelo that would help them consider accelerating the addition of new service to San Angelo. So that when it's over, you wouldn't just have expended a lot of effort and then be done. You would have a playbook that you could follow in whatever method makes sense for you, so that you wouldn't it wouldn't just end at that point. You would still have things you could do beyond that to try to control your own destiny to the maximum extent possible. And then finally, it's reasonable in a case like this to wonder, why would you do it? And we know there's been some discussion about that, and I think that's healthy and advisable on the front end to have those discussions. And what we put together here is a real quick, what we call a strategy options grid. And we've come up with 2 basic options that kind of would walk you through what's in front of you here. One, the top option, which we've called continue current efforts. We don't like the term do nothing. which is what a lot of people would call this, because even doing nothing entails doing something. It means doing what you're already doing. So the top option tells you if you did what you're currently doing, what would that look like? And if you did what we're proposing to do here, what would that look like? And it walks you through what the description is. So, you know, the current efforts are basically allowing the market to evolve on its own without any extraordinary effort. And I think it's reasonable to think that over time, using what we think we know about some other markets as an example, that the market will be more hospitable to potential new service, to new hubs at some point down the road. The real challenge is that by the time the data are obvious to the airline planners, you're running the risk that by that time the grant has expired, either didn't get extended or it got extended and then expired at the end of the first year, and you've missed an opportunity to help San Angelo rise to the top of the list of cities they're considering based on your economic data, which should be good at that point. But anything that helps airlines mitigate their risk when they start up service is a good thing. It won't make them go to a market that makes no sense, right? They're looking for a model for a city, for a market that will support itself over time. But if there's something you can offer that helps them get over the hump, mitigate the risk of startup, that will always help you get closer to the top of being considered. So the combination of how quickly we think the market is developing and the availability of the grant for the next, we hope if we can get it extended, the next 18 months, is where we think the real power of this plan is and why we think it makes sense to consider. But if you don't believe those things, and it's reasonable not to believe those things, if you think that airlines will add capacity anyway on their own timetable, regardless of what we do in the plan, if you think that this really isn't an improvement on previous plans that you've looked at, or if you think that you can tolerate the expansion of the grant, those are all reasonable things to believe and all reasonable justifications for not doing what we propose. But if you don't believe those things, and if you do believe that there is some benefit to acting quickly and trying to control your own destiny while the grant's in place and can be extended, then we would probably suggest you would think the other way. And in a nutshell, that's what we're talking about.
I'm sure you've reviewed the results from the previous consultants.
Yes, sir.
What are the pros that you see that, or the accomplishments the results that were positive for San Angelo?
Yes, sir. I think there was a lot of good research there by SH&E and by Boyd. And so I think that helped give us a fact base for us to assess the situation that you're in today. The problem is it's a little bit dated at this point, and the market's moving so fast that that's one of the reasons we're recommending redoing some of that work with another firm. That's not the work we do, but it's a firm that we're recommending that you hire. So it made a good foundation for us to begin to assess the market. I think the challenge with it is that I think the word we used the last time we were talking was it was front-loaded. It was very heavy on the analysis, which is essential and good, but it didn't, at the end of the day, get you a plan that then you could execute, irrespective of whether you had a consultant or not, whether you did it on your own or not. And the key difference here is the deliverable at the end of the day is not only the extension of the grant, but a playbook that then you can follow in whatever form you choose, because with airlines, it's going to be all about the follow-up. Getting in front of them once with data they already have isn't going to help them make a decision that they weren't going to make anyway. To help them make a decision faster in the way that you want requires consistent contact and follow-through. To help them see what's there before the data tell them it's there. And that's what the other plan didn't do.
Once we have your study, who would be responsible for getting in front of the airlines and making the presentation?
I think that's a call that Lou and his staff would have to make. We can assist with that. We can refer you to others who can assist with that. Some airports do it on their own. That's a call that Lou and his staff would have to make.
Do you have contacts and openings with those organizations that we might not have?
With the airlines?
Uh-huh.
I don't know what contacts you have, but we know people in the network planning leadership of all the airlines that we would want to talk to. And if for some reason you wanted to go somewhere else, we could recommend you others that are good. Because what's important to us is that you succeed, you have a plan to keep moving forward after we're done in this initial phase. If we do it, we're less concerned about whether you do it with us or with someone else.
You mentioned that the airlines don't necessarily look at markets our size for expansion. You mentioned that at the beginning. What size would they be looking at?
Well, that's an excellent question. What they're looking at really is Ever since 2007, airlines have become super focused on the profitability of a market. Before that, before fuel prices spiked, which of course is interestingly actually working in your favor as a market at this point because of what that's entailed. Airlines were willing to risk capacity. They were willing to take a chance on something because the marginal cost of operating fuel really wasn't that high. So the risk of additional capacity was low. But after 2007, when fuel prices spiked, and not only that, but they became very volatile, meaning it was hard for airlines to plan, they make all their planning based on the worst case analysis. I think what they're using this year is about $120 a barrel, which is higher than what it is, but that's their planning horizon. And so for a market to stand out, it has to offer one of a couple of things, but essentially it has to offer some strategic benefit that they're willing to invest in, and there's not many markets that fit that description. Or it has to offer what the level of profitability on a unit basis that they want to see. And it's harder for a smaller market to provide that, but even if it does, there's so many markets in that size that it's hard for a market to stand out above the clutter, if you will, of airline planning. So the idea is to give them something to understand about your market that is unique, that would cause them to accelerate their thinking before the data would prove that it's there. So it's not so much that it's small and that they don't like small markets, but they're after profitability, and there's so many other markets in their minds that are similar to San Angelo that unless you can tell them why it's different, it's hard to stand out.
Time is really of the essence on this, isn't it? Because you've got a
Thanks.
You got a 4-month period to complete this from the time you give the go-ahead, and also the grant that you're talking about expires in December. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Roland, I have a question. Why the Development Corporation? Why is this an expense for us?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I can make some assumptions, having not been here. But I've looked at the strategic plan, and it is a strategy that was given to the City of San Angelo and the Chamber of Commerce. And then at the beginning of this year, we prioritized those goals, and the Coast of DC identified that as a priority, top priority number 2. In my opinion, it is an economic development competitive advantage. We need to have that airline service to be able to be competitive against other regions, to be able to recruit and to retain our businesses. That is the answer that I provide to you with regard to why we would consider funding it.
And from where would the money come?
We would do a budget amendment, and it would come from future projects. You may have other questions with regard to more of what's involved in the scope of service, and more of the information that Ed has provided. Because it is a competitive nature, I would recommend that we do that in executive session. Obviously, this would make us more competitive against our region and our competitors, and so if that is of interest, that's certainly you're under your purview.
That chart that you showed us, the pros and cons, can you, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I didn't see that one in our packet. Can we get that?
We didn't have that that chart.
Right.
Do you have a?
Yeah, I want
We have hard copies.
one copies, okay.
Ed, I do have a question for you.
Yes.
Should we fail, or should we not succeed in securing the extension of the scarcity grant? What is the impact of that? I mean, can you continue a plan without the success of that?
Yeah, yes, Roland, we can. I think the more arrows in your quiver, the better. And the scarcity grant, again, will help, if it's extended, will help give airlines the awareness of the possibility that their risk can be mitigated if they start up the type of service that is specified in that grant that was awarded by DOT. If it's not extended for whatever reason, you still have the same story to tell. It doesn't alter the market. It gives you one less tool at your disposal to help San Angelo rise above competitor airports, but it doesn't invalidate the rest of the plan. It might remove some of the urgency. But other than that, the rest of the plan would be valid.
Is there a reason, let me ask another, is there a reason this comes to us as opposed to going to city council for general fund?
Lou, you want to?
The airport itself is an enterprise fund. We do not fall under the general fund. I do not have the funds available in the enterprise fund for this venture. And I hate to do this, but I'll kick it off to Michael Dane, our CFO, to answer that from the general fund.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Mike.
Nothing like having friends. This is presented to this organization because this organization, this board has adopted a goal to, is my understanding, expand the number of air carriers. And so unless you have an expectation that you'll be able to attract or move that goal forward without the commitment of resources, I think we would suggest that in furtherance of that initiative, this would be the place where those expenditures should be made. But if it's not your goal, then we should take it off the goal list. So it's your goal, you should pay for it, I guess is the short answer. But we are open, certainly, to alternative methods for moving toward that goal. Daniel, I think, was when the last work was nearing its end, Daniel said we can't give up. It's a priority for that board. As a staff, we can't drop this. Let's keep this moving, and let's try to find alternatives for COSA-DC to consider. And so that's why this is brought forward. It's rooted in that, in your priority, in his eyes, which came as a directive to Lou to don't give up, keep moving. Bring them some alternatives so that they have options for moving toward their goals.
Mike, I think it's important to note also that in the scarcity grant, there's also participation from the airport in kind, as well as COSA-DC, and as well as I think we have a partner, Chamber of Commerce, also. So we are working together. Doesn't fulfill the entire cost, but we're all participating together.
Would I be correct in assuming this is the next indicated step?
And that is correct. From the city manager, after a lengthy meeting, he directed staff to look at alternatives and not your standard air service development. And Pedro, one thing that I also want to answer to you, Edward is a former Southwest executive, so he does have a lot of connections with airlines and the planning groups from those airlines too.
I don't know about executive, but
Employee.
I think there's only one there that counts. He's not here.
Are there any other questions for the team? Any other statements from the team?
I'd make a motion that we approve the amount of funding not to exceed $79,825.
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Then I will take the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing the results.
Thank you.
Roland, we need then to put a budget amendment in to cover this?
To fund it, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I will work with the finance to
Okay,
to
very
amend
good.
our budget. You bet.
Thank you very much. Okay. We will then move on to item number 5, consideration and possible action regarding Neighborhood Family Services Agreement between the City of San Angelo Development Corporation and the City of San Angelo, presented by Economic Director Roland Pena. Hello again, Roland.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
All right, this is the last of our unexecuted contracts. So we are operating with a contract that has not been executed with our neighborhood and family services. Obviously, Bob Solis is responsible for that. It is totally routine. The contract expires September 30th. You have your scope of services and performance measures. We do not have a change with regard to those scope of services. We are beginning to work on the next contract for the next fiscal year, and we're going to try to incorporate a reporting mechanism so they can come before, so that Bob can come before the board. The compensation is the $31,035, $135, and it's split up into 2 equal payments. The first payment will occur here in the recent few days, and then the final payment September 30th. With that, I'll entertain any other questions you may have.
It's the one that we've been operating under in the past.
That's correct.
Make a
Part of the
motion that we
ballot.
approve.
Part of the ballot.
I think just for the clarity to the general public that may be here or watching, this is a contract that basically duplicates a previously existing one, and services have continued to be rendered to us. We're just cleaning up the paperwork at this point. We now have full staff on board, so we're able to catch up all those loose ends.
Quick little note, the date under compensation under Article 3, it says September 30th, 2013. Instead of 2014.
I think that's what it is. We have been operating without an agreement since last year.
Actually, he is correct. The contract that you will execute has the correct date. So
Okay.
we caught that after we posted.
Okay.
We did correct it, and so the contract has the correct date.
Okay, I have a
And so,
motion
and you
before
will
us.
sign for that for Scott, John.
Yes.
On his behalf.
I have a motion before us. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Any public comment? With that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. That carries, and we will sign the contract. The next item, number 6, updates by staff regarding the following. Shall I just bunch these together and let you separate them,
Sure.
Roland?
Sure.
Okay. COSA DC, BR&E program update, budget update, sales tax workshop. And the floor is yours, sir.
All right. We have been working diligently since our last board meeting on the Business Retention Expansion Program. We've had 2 committee meetings, and that is going very, very well. Our next meeting is this Friday. I hope that by August, in fact, I think we pretty much will have our economic incentive policy wrapped up by then, so we'll have something for the board to approve next board meeting. We are utilizing some different case scenarios to help test the policy, so we will be ready for August 30th. So I just wanted to report to you, Tommy's been involved, John Barrios and Pedro and Scott, and so not all of them together at the same time, so no quorum issues there, but that's been going relatively very well. So I just wanted a quick update on that. And then with regard to the budget, I only have one minor change, and what I've done is some reallocation of the funds. We have not changed the total amount. We've determined sort of late in the time frame that we have some internal departments that require more dollar allocation. I've spoken to Tina, and we're going to try to come up with a system to true up It's been about 4 years since we've had the true allocations made, and she's going to be assisting me as treasurer and as the internal finance department head to help me true up these numbers internally. So what I've done in terms of the budget, just like I showed you on that slide, that is the only change. I basically reallocated funds that we had dedicated to city clerk and the public information office and reallocated to legal. And so the total stays the same. Those are the only changes. I wanted to provide that update to you. That's what will be submitted to Morgan. And since we're talking about budget, I'm also working on the contract for the historic downtown. That is a multi-year contract that expires the end of September 30th. And in the discussions with Del Velasquez, they are wanting an increase in that. I don't have a number at this point, and we'll be talking more about that, and we'll be negotiating more about that. I have determined that the contract does need to change. We do need to incorporate some performance measures, but I just want to give you a heads up. And so likely to see an increase there. I don't know yet. And so if we improve this process of true up internally, it's a possibility you'll see an increase in staff services contract. I don't know that yet neither. But I want to give you the heads up that is working. I want to improve that process. Hopefully we can arrive at a system that we can determine those needs early on before we begin the budget process, so we don't have what's happening now or everything's happening at the tail end of the process. And in essence, that's the issue right now. It's pretty late in the game to try to create any increases. So with that, I'll go ahead.
Let me ask you, and this may be outside the scope of the way the agenda is presented, so somebody tell me quickly if my question is out of bounds. I think we made it pretty clear last year, you were not here, but we made it pretty clear last year that we wanted some evidence of return on investment on several things: high ground, porch to plains, TMCN, the downtown. So when are we going to see that, and how will that play into whether or not we renew the memberships, whether or not we increase whatever? So are we just going to be expected to do what we did without any comment on the return on investment?
Tommy, your questions are my questions. That is the reason we're talking about performance measures. The return on investment is also part of that performance measure. You may recall last month we approved the West Texas Innovation Network $7,500 grant. The information that I am submitting to legal with regard to that, in my opinion, has to show a return on investment. So it's sort of the rule of thumb that I'm utilizing for all of our expenditures. You know that high grounds we eliminated for next fiscal year. TMCN, we've eliminated that from the budget as well. And ports to plains, I am in discussions with those board members and that executive director about how we need to prove to justify that expense. So I'm with you, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure that the ROI is in the performance measure and that report is presented to the board, so that you're the final judgment on that ROI.
So you're saying that we will have those reports before the end of the budget process on every individual request that we're having?
For example, historic downtown. That's an item that's been missing, and so I'm incorporating that into the next contract. And instead of a multi-year contract, I've recommended a annual contract. And I've stated, since you have not been recording that information to help identify the return on investment and how we can prove that expense is it's justified, then we're going to take this year to do that, so that you can come back to the board to make that justification.
Yeah, with downtown, that would be fairly simple to do, because they used to give reports to the planning department on the increased amounts of revenue and the increased numbers of businesses that have relocated downtown.
And that's correct, Director. What I've stated, I mean, it's no different than the evaluation you're providing on our own staff, and that is, did you influence? Did the activity influence that capital investment? If it's something that's coming to downtown anyway, if it's something that's coming to San Angelo anyway, without any additional assistance, facilitation, or the actual marketing and recruitment of that entity, then it's hard to justify that. So in the case of Historic Downtown, just so that you know, the discussions have been, well, you can record what's coming in, but we want to see what you're bringing in. How did you influence that capital investment? And what did that do to the tax base, and how many jobs were created? It's no different than what we're going to be doing with the Chamber of Commerce, and I've had those discussions with the Chamber of Commerce, and I think we're all in agreement. So I hope that answers your question, Tommy. We're moving toward that.
What sort of documentation are they going to provide to say, yeah, we did influence? Is it just the fact that they tell us, or are they going to provide a document that says, signed by, and they always use the SPDC as an example because they have good method of documentation, where they say, we've worked with this person, this is how many, what their capital investment has been, this is how many jobs they've created, this is what they've done, and then they sign it at the very end and say, yes, these people did help us. That's what I would like to see, which shouldn't be that.
It shouldn't be difficult to do.
No.
And in their, either the quarterly report or the annual report, they're able to show how many companies they were able to work with, how many they were actually recruited, how many jobs were created, and how many companies they continue to work with.
Let me ask another question on Ports to Plains. How many slots do we get on that board? Do we just get one?
I believe so. We only get one.
Because it seems to me it would be at least worthy of a discussion. We're funding that we should have some say as to who sits on that board. And I realize the city council has appointed that. So, I realize that could create some tension to raise that issue, but still it still seems a fair question to me. How can we talk about who the representative to that board is, since in fact the Development Corporation is the one funding that? Maybe we alternate year, I don't know, but that may be a question to pose.
Okay.
That's a fair question.
And I am meeting on as part of my goals that I laid out to you, I am meeting on a regular basis, not only with you, the directors, but also with council members and the mayor, and have a good dialogue with them so far. And I think that's a fair question to put on the table, and we'll see where that goes. I've also had discussions with Chris Cornell, who is the other board member from San Angelo, and obviously he's private sector. He's paid his own membership. But I've explained to him also my thoughts, which mirror what you're thinking, Tommy. How do we continue to justify that? And I realize I truly realize what Ports to Plains represents, but I guess I'm a little biased in terms of San Angelo in our region. I've got to see some activity and see what is helping our region become more competitive and be more of a player within that Ports to Plains corridor.
I think it's only fair to the taxpayers who are funding this organization that we give them a reason for the expenditures that we make. To me, that's only fair. So if anybody gets upset that we ask for them to record their activity and their performance and the return on investment with funds that we have given them, to me is a fair question of anybody.
I agree.
Does that take care of that item?
That, I believe so, hopefully.
Sales tax
Any other
workshop.
questions?
cover that.
Just a reminder, I believe we have several board members attending the sales tax workshop. And I do encourage you, we have some remaining workshops. You know, when I talk about compliance, with regard to attending those workshops, I believe the president and trying to remember if it's the president, the treasurer, and some other city departments have to attend by law within 2 years, have to receive that within 2 years. But the part that I'm talking about with regard to compliance for the other members is it helps fulfill the two training requirements on the Public Information Act and the Open Meetings Act. And it's just a great opportunity for y'all to network with other Economic Development Board members and professionals and listen to the type of questions. You'll have the Attorney General's office representative there that can help answer any questions that you may have that may be lingering in your mind. But it's interesting to see and hear and listen to what the other boards are going through and the type of questions that they ask. And so obviously, if we can help facilitate that with you to help arrange the reservations, let us know.
Is that it for that item then, Roland?
That is it. I do have some executive session items I'd like to
Okay.
talk to the board. They are all having to do with incentives and a report and update on some that we've been working on. And I'd like our economic development partners to remain in this session.
Very good. It is now 9:19, so we will move into executive session. Executive session under the provision of Texas Government Code Title V, Open Government, Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, Exceptions to requirements that meetings be opened under the following. Section 551.072, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Section 551.087, to discuss and offer a financial or other incentive to a company or companies with whom the City of San Angelo Development Corporation is conducting economic development negotiations, in which the City of San Angelo Development Corporation seeks to have, locate, stay, or expand in San Angelo. We are now in executive session, and the time has elapsed to 9:20.
I'm not sure if
Yes, we are. It is 9:44, and we are out of executive session with nothing to report. So we will, well, that takes care of item 7. We will now move on to item 8. Announcements. Have we any announcements from the board or those gathered here? Okay. Pretty quiet future, I guess. How about future agenda items and board requests of staff?
I would,
Oh, yes?
yeah, I would like to put in a request. I know that we spoke about having a document during one of the presentations for the updates, but I would actually like to see a draft of a document that we can use to track these key performance measures for the organizations that we provide funds to. Now, if the staff could come up with something, I'd truly appreciate that.
Oh, a form or
A form.
checklist?
I would
Okay.
like a form that says, and Roland, if you want to sit down with David Erickson, he can probably provide you with the form that I'm talking about.
We can do
Okay.
that.
Do we have any other requests? Anything from staff?
No, I believe you're aware about, I guess, sadly, to report on Mr. Gunter, Ken Gunter.
Yes.
Just to make you aware of that. And you probably saw the paper today, and just keeping Brenda and their family in your thoughts and prayers.
Yes. I did not have a chance to look at the paper yet this morning. Is his obituary in the paper or just an article?
Just an article.
Just an article.
Okay. And just to be forthright, Ken Gunter passed away. Brenda Gunter is active with our downtown. And our condolences from the entire board and staff. With that, I will entertain a motion.
So moved. We adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And I'm not even going to ask for the other side.
Nay.